Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Vintage Drum Restoration Garage. And this morning, I thought we'd go over how to remove the glue off of a Gretsch Round Badge bass drum from the 60s. I've seen all kinds of funny ways to remove it, even down to sanding it off, and I've thought I'd just give you my take that I've been doing for years on how to remove it. It's not really that complex. First, you remove the finish. This was a satin flame finish, which was all cracked and ruined, and now we're going to just get this glue off of here and get it ready for a wood grain finish, maybe. Anyway, the inside needs to be taped. All the holes need to be taped so you don't get any leakage of the stripper, which I use. I use paint stripper on it, and something like this. All kinds of different ways to do it with different products, but this stripper seems to work pretty good. It's the one I have right here, so we'll use this one today. And all you need is a brush and put it on. I put it on kind of thick. I'll show you what I do here. I just take a little brush here. It's about 2 inches wide. Dip it in the old stripper. Get quite a liberal amount on there. And I just go in one stroke down. I only go one way with it. You go the other way with it, and anyway, it says not to do that, so better pay attention to the rules. So I go in one panel of the drum and apply it to it. Sometimes you have to do it twice. Try not to get it on the inside of the shell, obviously. So what we'll do is we'll let that sit for a bit, and it'll start bubbling off, and then I'll show you what else we're going to do here. Okay, now we're going to start getting the old putty knife. We got a 2-inch putty knife here. I sharpened the end, and just hold the shell here like this and go dig right into it. And of course you don't want to ruin the shell. Sometimes I go in this kind of fashion too, and you can see it's just peeling right away. I let this stripper sit for about 10 minutes. So there's that. Now I just take it like this, put it on the paper, and before I go to the next panel, I'll probably put a little more on this area. So I take it, get quite a heavy dose on there. And try to not get it in these holes. And that way I can keep moving. Now I just loosen my clamp up, move the shell to the next position. And then I'll hope you can see this. It's coming right off there. Give you a close-up here. So you can see it's down to the wood, mostly. And I've got it quite heavily on there, as you can see. So let's just keep working here. And then you can see it's coming right along, trying to get that glue off there. The next pass we do will be a lot easier. First one's a little bit tougher. So we'll just remove all this ick, put it on the paper down here. It's right here on a piece of paper. And then I just, as I'm going, I just fold it up. Keep using the same piece of paper over and over. Sort of like that. So now I'm going to continue on, put some more stripper on the shell where I just worked. Then I'm going to turn it. And I'll just keep working. Making sure I don't get too close to these edges. I got to get it right on the edge, but not on the edges. Okay, so I'll just loosen the clamp here. And I'm just checking to see if I've got any on the inside, which I don't, which is really good. Then we'll move on to this next panel here. I'll get that out of there. You know, every one of these drum companies had their own glue. I think Rogers was the worst. They say a lot of those guys who worked at Rogers didn't live real long after. That glue was supposedly really toxic. So I'd recommend against breathing any of that glue when you're removing it off those Rogers shells. what we'll do is we'll continue on here. That's what I've heard anyway. Put a nice thick coat of it on there. Then we'll let it sit for a bit and we'll continue working. Okay, now that we've got this stripper soaking on here for quite a few minutes, this is the second coat on this particular panel here. I'm going to work on it. Some of there's always going to have little spots where you're going to have to work on it a little harder. Put another coat of stripper on. But slowly but surely you'll get this off of there down to a nice maple finish. And ready for a final sand. You try sanding this stuff, you just clog your paper and go through a lot of your veneer on your shell. This just saves the veneer, and so now we got a pretty good Okay, now just want to show you the way I sharpened this putty knife. Put it on my grinder and got a nice sharp edge on it. You can see how sharp that is. I mean, it won't cut you, but it'll... What you're trying to do when you do this is, I tend to use this kind of a motion. I drag it off of here. So I'm like dragging it off of here. And it just kind of peels it away rather than this kind of a motion. You can do that, but you could go into the wood, and you don't really want to do that. So if you let this soak on here real good, it tends to work the best. And you can see you're going to have to do it a few times. Sometimes they put the glue on a little thicker, and you have to give it another shot of the stripper. So then you kind of wind up with that kind of a deal here. Then you put another coat on it and it'll get the rest of that on. A little bit thicker in this area for your stripper. Always got to remember when you're applying the stripper to take your rag and just kind of wipe these edges so it isn't, you don't want it to go down onto the shell and ruin that silver paint. Trying to keep it as original as possible. So that's a little recap on that. Okay, now this is what it's going to look like right before sanding. You see pretty much all of the green glue is off of it. You're going to have a little bit of glue here and there. You don't want any total buildups or anything, but a little bit here and there isn't really going to clog the paper too much. Alright, so now what you can do is you can go over it with a rag soaked in lacquer thinner. That'll get rid of a lot of this residue, and then it'll be ready for a final sand. One little thing before we move on here. You're probably wondering what this shell is being held with. It's a jig I made out of 2x6 2x6 boards, and it's just kind of a little trough, and then I use a pipe clamp to hold various size drums in there. You can see the front of it. I go over this in another video when I restored the Camco snare drum, so you can go refer back to my other video and you'll see how this thing was made. It's pretty handy. Right, now what we're going to do is we're going to get a rag, just an old rag, and soak it in lacquer thinner. I've got a chemical glove on my right hand here. I'll soak it pretty good. Quite a bit of lacquer thinner in there. And we just go over the outside of the shell. It'll take off any of the residue that's on there, even some of the light glue. I find this to be one of the helpful ways to get some of this glue off still. You can see it kind of peeling away there. Just go over it, the whole shell, roll it around. Like I said, there's going to be some glue still left. You can go over it with more stripper if you'd like. I don't think you need to go over it to where there's just none, but you can. And then I'll continue on after I do this whole shell. I'll let it dry and we'll start the sanding process. I'm just going to go over it with a 220. 220 grit does a good job. It'll bring the color back to the shell and it'll be ready for refin or a nice wood grain finish. Okay, so that's that. Okay, now we're going to start the finishing sanding of this drum here. I've got some 220 paper, and we'll run it with our palm sander, and I'll show you what I do. Anyway, you get the basic idea. We just go over the shell real good. I'm not going to finish sand this shell because I'll probably throw it on eBay and sell it to someone who can use a good unmolested shell. There's no extra holes in it or anything, so it's quite a nice shell. And you can see the inside is perfect still. There's no drips of the stripper on there, and that's what we want. We want this thing to look pristine. So as you're doing that remover process, you really don't want that stuff to get in that shell because it looks kind of amateurish. Okay, so here's what it's going to look like. I'll finish the shell up and I'll come back to you. Oh, just quickly, you know, there's still some residue of this glue on the shell. So when your paper starts looking like this, as you can see, there's, you know, it's not sanding anymore. So just change it. Paper's cheap. You don't want to sit there and work any harder than you have to. Don't press too hard, just enough. Let the sander do the work, and change your paper often. Okay, well, here's pretty much the finished product on this 20-inch Gretsch Round Badge bass drum shell. this isn't a final sand actually by any means, but this is a 220 sand, rough sand I would call it. It's not rough, but it's not a finished sand. Not for a wood grain finish. This would be a finished sand for if you were putting a wrap on the drum. So we've removed all the tape inside. There are no spots where the stripper got to it, and overall I'd say the shell's pretty decent. This is pretty typical of Gretsch to have these lines in here. That's where they jointed the veneers together, the maple veneers. Here's another one here, as you can see. So this wouldn't probably be the best wood grain finish shell, but it would look decent if it was a dark walnut finish. Anyway, as always, if you like this content, let me get this thing right, then you know, let your buddies know, and we'll continue to make these. If you have any questions, just drop them down below, and if you want to see any restorations that maybe you've got an idea on, well, let me know. And as always, if you can just subscribe, that helps me a little bit. Lets me know you guys are interested in my content, and any questions you got, great. And then tell your buddies about it. And this shell will be on eBay. My eBay handle is Hollywood Drums with 2 D's. So if you want to see this shell, it'll be up there. Today's the, what is it, 18th of March, or I don't know, 20th, 21st, I don't know. I'm retired. I don't really know the date anymore. So if you see this shell up there and you want to purchase it, you'll know where it came from. All right, friends. Till then, take care.